All right, guys, we got Robert Friddell here, the author of my favorite book, Intangible. Thanks for jumping on with us, Rob.
Happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me and looking forward to talking.
You've been making the rounds in the UVA media here, uh, podcasts, and
A couple stops. I don't know if rounds is right, but a couple stops at least. It's been fun. They've been nice enough to have me, and I've had a blast talking to them. But yeah.
so really awesome book. Everyone needs to go out and get it. It's on Amazon. It's also I think I got a copy at the bookstore as well.
Yeah.
So how long was the project in the making?
So started it night after the national championship, just kind of in my head, I guess. And then didn't really come to start the interview process until like a year or so later. Had 6 interviews in that first year, and then lost my job in custom suit sales in April 2020. And once that happened, then I kind of went all in on this project. Here's my dog, Coach.
I left mine upstairs, but she'd be doing the same
That's
thing if she was
probably wise. And once that happened, then I kind of went all in on this project and started to devote full time to it. Had a first draft by October of 2020, and then put it aside for a little bit. But eventually got back into it in, like, I want to say March or April of 2022 or 2021. And then kind of got rolling, found somebody that would help me get it into book form. Worked with them for a while and edited for a long time, just trying to get every word right. Wound up with where we got.
I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but what suit store were you working at?
Alden Lane.
Okay, that custom suit sales is definitely, you have to be. I went to get a custom suit fitted, and the first one, like, I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it with the guy. Like, I just wasn't feeling it. I didn't trust him. But then I went to the next place, and it was like a total opposite feeling. So that's not an easy racket, I can imagine.
100%. And it really does depend on who you get in those things. Like, if the guy's been working there for, guy or girl's been working there for X number of years, then you're in good hands. But if they're just started,
it was like 3 weeks or something. He said he'd been there for like 3 or 4 weeks. I'm like, oh no, man. Like,
I might pass.
And I'm like, I got the suit on, and I felt like so bad. Like, at that point, you're already like in it for 30 minutes. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, dude. But
you wanted a good suit, and you made the right call.
No, I did. It worked out good. Suit Supply, this place in I don't remember where it was, but it worked out good. So I'm a nerd, so I was thinking, like, how did you decide who you were going to interview? How did you reach out to people? And was this before it was before the pandemic for some of it, I'm sure. So did you have any like face-to-faces or like meet up at a Starbucks?
I had one face-to-face with Thomas Rogers. He was my first one. Talked to him after a wedding in Chicago.
Planned or unplanned?
Planned.
Okay.
May of 2019. And I met him at a bachelor party, ran into him a couple times in college, kind of knew each other a little bit, but wrote him a letter before I started this thing and said, hey, here's what I want to do. I know this is totally out of the blue, and I've never written a book before, but I want to do it. I feel that I can. And I remember talking about humility in that letter to him, talking about how it's kind of misunderstood in common culture right now, that a lot of people think it's just about being modest all the time, but there's a confidence element to it where you really, my dog is all up in my right all right, Coach, chill, dude. And there's a confidence element to humility where you want to be able to know yourself and know what your strengths are and know how to attack them, know how to utilize them, And I think that I always believed that I could write something of length. And this idea, when it struck me, really rang true with me. And from there, just kind of kept building it. In terms of the other interviews, I mean, it's friends of friends in the beginning, just trying to get in touch with anybody who is involved with the program.
Mm-hmm.
I got to talk to a couple of the coaches early on. And then from there, it really was just who else should I talk to about this project? Who would be good? Who would you would be willing to introduce me to? Kind of went from there with them, but got incredibly lucky that the majority of them happened during the pandemic, and guys were looking for stuff to do. And they were great conversations. I mean, I loved every minute of being in them. The beginning, you're kind of shaking a little bit, and then you kind of hit a stride and get rolling. And they were just incredibly fun. They're really good people who, speak from the heart and aren't afraid to call it what it is, I guess. And I hope that comes through in the book.
Yeah, there was a lot of openness. It was more than I was even expecting, I think. Especially there was a couple, I think it was a whole chapter from Isaiah Wilkins about like kind of the mental health thing. And he was really honest about, it was like, I wouldn't even want people to come around me. I couldn't eat with the team. And I was like, wow, he's being really open and honest, and definitely gave the book like a nice raw element.
Yeah, and I loved how Jack responded to it when, I relayed what Isaiah had said, and Jack related mental illness to a physical illness, which I really like, because it's like a recovery period and getting yourself back into playing shape, for lack of a better term there, and treating it as if it is an injury, as if it is something that you can come back from, that you will come back from. And it's not just this permanent thing that you got to live with. And I think that, for some people it is, and that can be a really tough thing to fight. And Isaiah has done a hell of a job, but he's got a hell of a community around him to fight it. And that makes all the difference in the world in those scenarios. And that was an important story to tell, I think, because he's not the only guy in that program that's experienced mental illness. And he's not going to be the last.
For sure.
And I love that he's on staff now and can, connect with players that might be going through the same thing now. But yeah, and I just think there's such a stigma still against that stuff, and there shouldn't be. It's a serious issue that needs to be dealt with appropriately. And yeah, I just loved how Jack responded to it, and I loved how open Isaiah was about talking about it.
Did you have a narrative kind of from the start, how you wanted to work with each interview, or were each people getting the same questions and you kind of just piece it together afterward?
You have a couple stories in mind just from other guys that you've interviewed prior that you can kind of bounce off them and get their thoughts on. But there was certainly not a script in my head for the whole book going into it. It was a very revealing process as it went on, I guess.
Any favorite interviews?
I mean, all of them were good. They really were.
Of course.
I really don't have, I guess, a favorite one. I like them all for different reasons. Kind of like kids, I guess.
Yeah.
Kid. But which one was your favorite? I like all of them. Yeah, I don't think I really had a favorite one, but I think once you start putting them all together and seeing what they all culminate with, that's what was really cool for me, just seeing that whole story come together. Because, I kind of went through the same process that the readers do, of going through the thing and trying to understand it as I go, and really having no idea what I'm getting into before I get into it, except for, the ending of the national championship, which is obviously great. But, the national championship ain't the story.
No, absolutely not. And book was big for me because I just moved to, I married into this. My wife went to UVA. I'm from New York.
Yeah.
I didn't really get into UVA until 2017.
Yep.
So a lot of this stuff was all fresh and new to me. And, you know, it was like learning as you go. And some people, I'm sure it's reminding other people of guys they forgot that were, big parts of the team.
And I think that's a
Yeah.
great starting point for fans jumping into it. Like it's hard to really understand what's going on with UVA basketball jumping in without any prior experience with it. I think you really do need the background, and hopefully 10 years 10 years of it will give you a good gist.
So you see at the national championship, you see like all the former players in the like celebrating and all the stuff. And I don't necessarily know if that's happening with every program. And people on the outside could be like, like it doesn't really add up. But when you go through this and you realize that it doesn't happen without these dudes, it all makes sense. It really was everyone's national championship.
Yeah, 100%. It really was a platform that kept being raised year after year. And, the changes that they made to the program throughout those 10 years were necessary for that national championship to occur. And I thought that story hadn't really been told up until, this thing came out. Just that it wasn't that 2-year turnaround. It took 10 years to build. It took 10 years of mistakes and failures.
Tweaking.
Yeah, tweaking, absolutely. Just to get to a point where it was possible.
Like Coach Bennett, maybe diving more into personal relationships. That was a big part of the book. Like, maybe around year 5 or 6, it was like,
Yep.
What can I do better? And then, players' feedback was maybe get closer, or, however, it's just make more personal relationships with us off the court.
Yeah. And I think that's valuable for every coach who reads this thing. When you're in a competitive environment, all you want to do is win. And, you got to realize that there's a lot of things more important than just getting a W on the stat sheet. Like it ends up being about those relationships that you've built throughout the time of competing together.
Yeah, it's so much more than a basketball book.
Yeah, I hope so.
It's like a life book, like a team building book. I mean, anyone, like you can give it to like the manager of a company or something. And I think there's a lot that they could take from it.
I hope so. Yeah. I think it's very transferable into other industries and, other programs and like youth sports, all the way up through high school, middle school. Cause I think the getting to know kids is unfortunately something that doesn't happen much in competitive environments. I think that you get to know them as a player, but as a person, I think that can be overlooked a lot. And it makes the coaching experience, at least for me, the personal relationships are why I keep doing it. I'm not a high school wrestling coach for the personal glory or anything.
Any favorite quotes or lessons?
I love the Ty Jerome, pain's gonna leave, that quote, because everybody goes through pain and sometimes it lasts for a long time, whether that's death of a family member, whether that's a bad loss in the national tournament, whether that's mental illness, those things are going to end. You are going to be all right again. And just being in the midst of that pain and knowing that it will end can really help you out when you're in those spots.
I wrote down, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I thought that was a great quote. And a lesson, I guess. I don't know what the exact quote is, but Coach Bennett, it was paraphrased by somebody else, but it was like Coach Bennett always said, whatever you do, make sure it's quality. Like if you're going to go out with your friends, make sure you're doing quality.
Yep.
And I've been trying to apply that to my day to day.
I love that, man. Yeah, that was Johnny Carpenter was relaying that one, I think. Yeah, I think there's this book is just chock full of those things that
It is.
you can take them out of the book and apply them in your own life. And, I hope that they do good things for people. I mean, that's when I was talking to Ben Buell, one of the managers on that national championship team. I was just explaining the project to him, and he was like, "Oh, so you're using our program to help other people?" I was like, "Yeah, exactly. That's in a sentence. That's perfect, man. Thank you." I
So
mean, that's really what I set out to do. I wasn't, I don't know, trying to do anything else other than give the guys that hadn't really gotten credit for that national championship and years before credit. But then helping all of the other fans of the program and, people that are just interested in basketball, interested in coaching, interested in leadership and value-based leadership, giving them kind of a template to work off of and kind of pull things from, and see what happens. And I talk about on the back of the book it being a seed, and I think that's really what I mean by that. That there are a lot of things that you can take out, plan into your own life, and watch them grow. And I hope that that's what's happening.
Was it always a book?
It was always a book. Yeah, it was never
Okay.
going to be anything else. The book itself structurally varied a lot, but I like how it ended up.
No, it worked out really well.
Thank you.
So did you have to, you said someone helped you out towards the end. Was that like was you shopping it, or was it like, I've heard, stories of people trying to get their book into the next level. How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so when you can go through like traditional publishers, or you can go through people who kind of help you self-publish. Like the publisher is Mountain Arbor Press for me. It's a branch of a company out of like just outside of Atlanta called Book Logics. They were extremely helpful. Just they've done, thousands of books with authors just like me that had never done it before. And doing it that way gives you a lot of control over what the end product is, and how it's marketed, how the cover looks, things like that. And when you go through traditional publishing, then you kind of give it to them, you plug it into a machine, and it goes. So you lose the ability to have all of that control over what the thing ends up being. And that was really important to me, just in my respect of the program and the individuals that I interviewed. I didn't want to give it to a company and say, "Here, go run with it."
Turned into
Plaster,
something else.
yeah, plaster the face of Tony Bennett on the cover and sell a whole bunch of copies. Like, that ain't me and that ain't them. And I love how it turned out. I love that it's really simple. And yeah, I actually think it looks like a UVA degree to some degree.
It's got the framing.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've appreciated all of their expertise and helping me along the way, while not, inputting any creative control over the project. So yeah, they were great.
So I'm not going to hold you too much longer. How are you following the team this year?
What'd you say?
Are you following the basketball team this year?
I am.
It's quite the game last night.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, we texted back and forth a little
Yeah.
bit last night.
Yeah, so last night was the Virginia game. Both teams in super desperate need of a win, and it felt like, to me, it felt like playoff basketball. It felt like tournament basketball, and I'm happy to see that, because I feel like JPJ has been a little bit late at times this year. We are in a pandemic and all, but it was really exciting to see. I could have watched that for 5 straight hours. It was a really good game with tension and all that good stuff they love about college basketball.
And like a fight for that, especially that first half was incredible. because I feel like that level of intensity hadn't been seen. Like if we could see the catapult tracking results of like their output of effort in that first half, I bet it's like leagues beyond what has happened previously in this year. And I love seeing that. Like again, I'm a wrestling coach. When I play basketball, I play it like a wrestler.
There you go.
And so I appreciate the fighting aspect. I love watching Caffaro last night.
Yeah, emotional.
Yeah, emotional and just like, I mean, physical is all hell, and that like, spreads to everybody else. When you see one guy do it, everybody else tends to follow,
including the fans when you're at home.
Yeah.
They were on the road for like a week and a half, and now we got Caffaro spreading this energy into the crowd, and palpable.
Yeah, and that's what we want. Like that's Virginia basketball to me. That's what every other team before them has kind of learned how to do over the course of the season. And, we hope that it sticks for the remainder of it. I mean, obviously it'll kind of ebb and flow a little bit as the season goes on, but I thought that was just a big pivotal point of, all right, this is what giving that 100% effort really looks like and how it feels and how you can energize a crowd, as you said.
Yeah, I think that we haven't really had that energizer guy who can affect the team. And I didn't know it was Francisco Caffaro. I really didn't know. It was probably until last night. It was like something, I don't know what happened, but something changed. And it was like, whoa, this is the guy. He might be the glue, the Mamadi Diakite glue that kind of propels us.
I like that. And I hope that it gets Shedrick going a little bit. Like I think up until last game, up until that Tech game, it was kind of Shedrick being the big man.
Too comfy.
Yeah, a little bit too comfortable maybe. And, spark a little fire under him and get him going a little bit. And that's only good. Like that competitive nature in that program, that is only a good thing. And it's not like a knock to Shedrick at all. Like he's been, he's like fourth in the country in blocks right now.
Yeah.
He's playing his ass off. But yeah, I think seeing somebody else kind of take minutes from him is only going to do good things for that program and this team right now.
You think we make the tournament?
Man, I hope so.
Yeah, I think that's the goal. Like, I don't think we're shooting for a national title this year. I think we make the tournament, keep it moving.
But once you're in, anything can
happen.
It's
never know. It's a new season.
That's right.
All right, Rob, I appreciate it, man. Any new books in the pipeline or anything else on the horizon?
I hope so. I've got a few ideas, and I'm working on one, but we'll see where it goes. Then
you got the street cred now, man.
Slight street cred. I don't know. But we'll see how the other two end up. If I can go for something big again, but yeah, I mean, this one was fun. This was, a life dream. I'm glad I got to do it, and I hope it affects people in the same way that it affected me.
Was it an anxiety ridden in the lead up to the release?
Yes.
I can imagine.
The whole time writing. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're sitting here with all of this incredible content sitting on your screen in the form of quotes, and you got to figure out how to put it all together and how to make it, I guess in a way like worthy. And maybe that's the wrong word, but I just wanted to make sure that whatever came of it was something that those guys could be proud of, and really a testament to what they've done, and hopefully spread what they did a little bit further than it reached prior.
For sure. Go get it. Mine's all full of highlighter marks, and I carried this thing around for like 2.5 months. I was bringing it back and forth to work.
I love it.
Yeah. So, all right, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. We'll be in touch. we'll talk again.
That sounds good, man. Good luck with all this.